We're so excited here at Just Right Reader and thrilled to welcome all of you in. Stacey, do we think everyone's in and I can start?
No, they're still coming in. We're at about 151 and we're still populating.
All right, so we'll just give it a second for everyone to come in. Ladies, this is going to be so much fun. Do you know the best part of all of this is like, it's so kid oriented, right? Like we get to, like, Kim, you get to take a break from kids just to like come talk to Lucy. Like, don't we love that?
Amazing. I could pinch myself.
Me too, actually. You know, what's so funny about that you say you want to pinch yourself is like, I always kind of feel like I'm living my like best life as a past principal. Like, I feel like that's what this is, right? Like Lucy, I get to like chit chat and hear what your best thoughts are on literacy. We get to use it to create our products. Kim is like doing the real action out there. Like, this is like a principal dream, Kim. You're right.
Absolutely is. Yeah.
And I bet do you feel that way, Lucy, that you're getting living like you've made such an impact? You must feel that way too.
I feel so honored to have an opportunity to share this time with you, and honored to have had the opportunities that have come my way across my career. And I also feel really humbled by all of it, because in my mind, I'm just Lucy, and I have a passion, like you all do, for making a really important difference for the children who are in our care. And that's what I want to do. And if there are things that I can do that are going to make that big difference, I'm just thrilled.
Do you know what I think? Really happy. I mean, ladies, people are still coming on, so we'll just chit chat till everyone's in. But I think there's something to be said for what you both just said to me of, this is about kids, right? Like when you're at the site, it's about kids. And when we get to have this chat, it's still about kids. And I feel like if all we're doing is keeping that focus on like, how are we creating good products for kids? How are you like putting the action, like doing the real action, Kim, in place that like Kimberly, like that's really good for kids. And if Lucy's like training teachers with the idea behind kids, that's where we always see that achievement go, right?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. We can absolutely do a better job. And I'm so excited for it seems a big wave that is occurring in our understanding of the importance of structured literacy, what it is, and what we need to do in order to make that really important difference, because there's work to do for sure.
I mean, I think there's something to be said, actually. We'll kind of jump in as people start coming in and just chit-chatting, but we haven't seen, I think we're just starting on this almost like movement revolution that is just beginning to do right and create something so beautiful for kids. Like when you say that I almost think the best is yet to come. Like we haven't actually seen it, right? We're still learning, we're still shifting.
We're still shifting, indeed. There have been some seedlings that have been planted for a long time. There's a lot of nurturing that has taken place, and there's a lot of sunshine that's happening, and that seedling is growing into something that's going to bloom coming into the future. So I think, Sarah, you're exactly right in that analogy. There's more to come. There's more work to do, certainly, but we sure have a lot of understanding of what that needs to look like.
Yeah, I feel like we have a solid foundation to really build something really, really strong. And I think that I think you talked about a huge wave. I think that there is now a coalition, if you will, of folks who are saying that this is what's right for children. We know better, we do better.
That's right.
Thank you, Maya Angelou.
Yeah, I think when we know better, we do better. And it's just exciting to see. And you're right, it's an honor to be in this space and time. To be enlightened in this way, to do what's right for our children. It's a movement.
So I think we can start. I see like our numbers kind of starting, but We are having a conversation here about a movement that's happening across the country. I'm Sarah Rich. I'm the founder and CEO of Just Right Reader. And these fabulous ladies and I had a saying, and I think I want to start us off with, like, I feel like I'm living my best life as a former principal of over 20 years to help create products and decodables that are good for kids and take home decodables that go home for kids over the summer. And I get to live my best life because at Just Right Reader, as we create our products, we are constantly talking to amazing researchers, amazing thinkers out in the field. But a huge part of our vision is not actually for us at Just Right Reader to continue talking to them, but to create spaces like this, a fireside chat where we get to talk to practitioners in the field, like Kimberly Vaught, Executive Director of Leadership Development for Charlotte Meck Schools. Kimberly, you were a turnaround principal for many, many years, and we are so excited to have you here today to kind of share with us the real work that happens into putting that into place, like that shift that Lucy's talking about. So I can't wait to kind of have you share that with us as we go through. Welcome.
Thank you. It's an honor to be here today.
Oh my gosh, this is going to be so great. And we are so deeply blessed, Kimberly and I, to get to have this wonderful conversation with Dr. Lucy Hart Paulson. We all know her as one of the best thinkers in the country, in the world right now on structured literacy and how we do right by kids. She's one of the co-creators of LETRS for early childhood educators. And Lucy, we are just like, oh my gosh, Kim and I are beyond the moon to have this great fireside chat with you, to think about what we can do for kids and what, our audience right now is district administrators and site administrators. So I hope as we have our kind of fireside talk together, we'll think bigger about what they can put in place for them. Because I know, as being a past principal, is like, everyone's just like, tell me what to do and I'll do it, right? What that looks like. So I know, Lucy, we're really glad you're here. Thank you for joining us.
Well, thank you. I'm honored, extremely honored, but I'm also really humbled by that introduction and what you put me up to, because I am just Lucy. And I want to just express my gratitude for all of you that are joining this fireside chat. I truly am. I'm grateful for the experiences and opportunities that I've had across my career. And I am so thrilled that we can, all of us, make a really important difference moving forward in our understanding of what we need to do to make the very best instructional opportunities for the children who are in our care.
So I think, what's so powerful about this is that Kimberly and I are here like in awe of you, and you're just in awe of the movement, right? So talk me through a little bit for Kimberly and I, how you started this. What was, when you started this vision and this work of LETRS that now is in so many, this webinar is all across the US, and people are joining us from Kentucky to Anchorage, Alaska, to Texas. Talk us through when you started this LETRS movement, what that meant for you and what you saw and the why of why you started it.
Mm-hmm. Well, my journey goes back decades and decades and decades and decades. And yes, I can put that last finger up. A long time. As a professional, I'm a speech and language pathologist. And way back, all those decades ago, when I started working in the school system and got to see young children and the little friends who got to come see me, they couldn't talk very well, they sounded like it. And I bet every single one of you has heard a little friend who had a bit of difficulty learning how to say the sounds of the language. So I knew what to do in order to help them learn to speak more clearly. And that's when they were younger, kindergarten, because way back all those decades ago, preschool was not the level that we have today. But I also will say, in a thought bubble, we need to do better in our country with providing services for our youngest children, our youngest students. But those little friends, they went on, and most often when I followed them through their educational career in second grade, so many of those little friends were back in the special education referral process because they were having difficulty learning how to read and write. And so it was this burning question for me of what could I have done with those little friends when they were younger that would have made their road to reading and writing a little bit smoother. And so it took me down this journey. I pursued my doctorate degree. And so now that I'm a doctor, you can all call me Lucy. That would be the best. But I spent about 2 decades working in settings that many of you are so familiar with, in school settings, working with preschool, kinder, first, second, third, fourth, fifth grade, and working with children who were in that process of learning language and the impact that that had on their literacy learning. And so today we have such a deeper understanding of the contribution that language has to the literacy learning process. And across time, so about 2 decades working in schools, about 2 decades working in higher education. And through that process, I've authored several resources for early childhood educators. And I'm very honored to have had the opportunity to work with Louisa Moats and co-write the Letters for Early Childhood Educators. Letters being language, who can say it with me? Language essentials for teachers of reading and spelling. So that's where I'm at. I get to do a lot of professional learning opportunities today. I did get to retire from my faculty teaching position, and probably my most fun job now, living in Central Oregon, is I live by my 3 grandchildren. So I'm a grandma, and I have a 5-year-old who is in kindergarten, and watching how literacy has grown and blossomed as she's figured out truly what the alphabetic principle is, and is moving into that magical time period where she knows that she is figuring out how the reading process looks and how you can identify the sounds in words that you want to write, match up the letters, and put those letters on paper for her compositions. It just is magical. And then 2 little 3-year-old grandsons, and they have been in the throes of learning oral language, which has just been a huge gift to me. So that's what I get to do. My journey, I think, and my big mission in the content that is in Letters for Early Childhood Educators is to take the science, the research that we know about and what the research is sharing with us and guiding us, and put that into a context that is applicable for early childhood educators. So that's what I get to do.
I'm going to tell you something that no one on the audience is going to believe, but you told me this crazy story, Lucy, that you were volunteering in your granddaughter's classroom and no one knew who you were. Can you believe that, Kim? No one knew that Dr. Lucy Hart Paulson, who thought of letters for early childhood, right? Because she's a kindergartner, so early childhood is her jam, right? No one knew you were there. So I love this story. It is very applicable, I think, of who you are, the humility and the leadership you exhibit in just your everyday. Tell us about that moment for that teacher and what you helped her kind of revolutionize in her classroom. Right, Kim? It's like giggle status. No one knows. Lucy Hart Paulson is here volunteering, probably you probably took the kids down to lunch one day, right?
Well, I do get to volunteer once a week in my granddaughter's kindergarten classroom. And I wanted to just make sure I could be a supportive resource for the teacher, doing whatever that teacher needed me to do for the time period that I was there. And as I saw a lot of the things that were happening in my granddaughter's kindergarten program, I thought, there are some things that we can do that are going to make it even better. They were using some newer programs, and they had a patchwork of things that they were trying to weave together to make a really important difference in children's lives. And so after a period of time, it was after Christmas, before I just shared with this teacher a little bit. I wanted to make sure I had a good relationship with her first. We had that, and then I just shared with her a little bit. I said, I know a little bit about literacy learning and little kids, and I get to share a lot of this information with teachers across the country. And my big mission is to do whatever I can to help you. So what are some things that you would really love to know about? Here's what some of my areas of expertise are. And she picked that up that very same day. She created a learning experience for her other kindergarten teaching partners that we could share some information. And a big focus that she wanted to focus on was the writing process. So I modeled for her some of the writing strategies that I like to use with littles, with preschool, kinder, even into first grade. And the writing, and she took it on, and she has continued to implement some of those strategies. And what I have seen over the months is that children are really keying into, I can be a writer, and I know how I can take the sounds and the words that I want to write, match them up to the letters that I've been learning and know about, and make that composition a little bit more complete than what children had thought that they might be able to do. The other piece of it is I see those little friends also are keying into those foundation reading skills, letter learning, what the digraphs are, and making a really important difference in their expanding their understanding of the alphabetic principle and moving into phonics.
I've heard you say this before, actually. I think part of what I always take away when I talk to you is the importance of reading and writing in that connection, right? Like this is something that every time we've spoken, you've said it very clearly, like writing is just as important as reading and that connection. What's one tidbit you'd want to like tell this crowd about writing? Because everyone's kind of around the country has gone through letters, right? And they think a lot about that reading foundation. Mm-hmm. Is there any tidbit you want to give people around building that writing foundation as well?
Mm-hmm. Well, I share this, and I think reading and writing are like breathing. When you read, you breathe in, and when you write, you breathe out. You can't have one without the other. And that is such an important aspect when children are trying to figure out what this code is about. And in the earliest years in preschool, when you include a writing component with children's alphabet learning instruction, you are going to have even more powerful alphabet learning with the children who are in your care. When kids move out of preschool and move into kindergarten, that writing component, well, actually, let me just say this. In preschool, in kinder, and in first grade, what children are learning about in the reading realm is also what they should be writing about in the writing realm. So words that children are learning how to read are words that they should also be learning how to spell and to write. And the handwriting component, excuse me, the handwriting component is one that is absolutely essential. The analogy I like to use is when you can legibly write the letters, then you're going to be a much better writer, because it is one of those important foundations. I liken it to being able to say the speech sounds in the words that you want to express. If you're not able to say the speech sounds, it's going to be hard to understand what it is you want to write or you're saying. If you can't legibly write the letters, then it's going to be really hard to figure out what it is that you want to write about. And I do think that over the course of a number of decades, handwriting has been put back on the back burner.
Sure.
And you probably have seen that in schools, right? Especially of COVID. I feel like that was a casualty of COVID a little bit.
There were a number of casualties of COVID.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I would say even pre-COVID, I think that, we are on this hamster wheel of, assess, high stakes testing, and teachers feeling that pressure to really focus on what's being assessed in handwriting is, those fine motor skills, and really that, hand-eye coordination, the brain research around that just has not been a priority. But but the other piece that's not been a priority is understanding, the research around hand-eye coordination and for writing, and then just having kids being able to decode and encode, and the reciprocal relationship between the reading and writing process. So I think that, we've kind of taken one bird in one hand and thrown another one out in another. So yeah, I would agree.
Yeah, Kimberly, I couldn't agree more.
I think it's hard though. I think a little bit, I want to kind of like, knowing that this audience is administrators and district staff, what's your advice to them almost, right? Like there's almost this question of, okay, I hear that. I've got to, like, as an administrator and a district person, I've got to like really think about my writing. We can make sure we're focusing on reading, but what are we doing for writing? Mm-hmm. And then is there any other almost like, I don't know, it's such a silly word to say non-negotiables, but like the must-haves as we think about decoding, phonological awareness, and that reading-writing connection. Mm-hmm. And I'll let you both kind of share, because Kimberly, you're going to share from like the district perspective of what that looks like as an amazing turnaround principal. Why don't you start, and then we'll pass it up to Lucy afterwards.
Yeah, for sure. I think that there are probably, couple hundred administrators listening this afternoon, and you're thinking, you're probably already planning what you have to do when you get off of this call. You probably scattered around before you logged into the Zoom, and you made it a priority to be here today because you knew this was important learning. The same way that's the way that we're going to have to approach this work. So certainly we know that there are many, many times that we feel bound and we feel strapped and we feel like we have competing priorities, but we have to be able to clearly communicate our mission and our vision and our why for the work. And this is some of the most important work, if not the most important work that we can do for littles, is give them a strong foundation. So while we certainly have, fighting on the left, the right, the top, the bottom, fighting all around us for whatever reason, I think that we have to center ourselves and really think about what's important, what are our priorities. And when we look in the eyes of our children, number one, they're worthy. Number two, this is worthy work. It's noble work. And we have to pride ourselves on being the lead learners. So I would encourage anyone here today as a district administrator, as a principal, as a lead teacher, a coach, to first delve into this work yourself. When we know better, we do better. I think that's why we're leaders, right? We lead the way. We give very, very strong charges to the communities that we serve. And I think that, if as winners, we always, as leaders, we always want the smell of that win. This is certainly a way to get what I call a quick win. If we all jump in this game together and just make a commitment that this is the right work on behalf of our children. You don't have to be the expert. Start small. Start with small learning. Surround yourself. Read. Look at the research. Read Dr. Paulson's work. Look at the products that Just Right Reader provides. The work is being done for us in a real, cohesive kind of way. But I think the first thing we're going to have to do is clearly communicate our why. Our children are worth it. And know that we're doing the right work on behalf of our kids, and commit to be lead learners in this work and establish this as the priority for our littles. We want to create an environment of literate citizens, and it starts as soon as they come out of the womb, and really understanding that there is certainly a science around the way that this works, and making a huge commitment to say, we're going to drive a stake in the ground. This is the right work. And this is where we're going to camp for our babies. So
love it. There's a stake in the ground. Like, right. This is about kids. Lucy, I feel like you're always like, you echo Kim in this, right? Of Kimberly, this like work of like, what do we do for kids? So what's your advice to all those school administrators? Like, I feel like there's a moral imperative here, right? Of like, what are we going to do to shift this balance to support classrooms and kids?
Right.
What's your moral, like, what's the one thing that you want administrators to hear today?
It's an equity. Thank you. It's an equity thing. You look at our NAEP scores, and we hear, 39% of our children are not reading at a proficient level. If you switch that number, it's 61% of our children are not surviving. So 39 are. That means 61% of our children are not reading proficiently. That means what we've been doing is not working. And we have known for decades how to best teach children to read, and we add that writing process to it, it's going to make an even bigger impact and a bigger difference. Because you look historically over what we've been doing educationally, is writing has been put on the back burner. There's been a big focus on reading, which not always has included how important writing is. And so I agree, Kimberly, yes, put the stake in the ground. A non-negotiable is that when we are instructing in those earliest grades we have our reading block. Nope, it's our reading and writing block. Exactly. It is together. It's not an added thing to what teachers are doing. It's an included aspect of instruction that teachers are doing in their classrooms. So the letters that children are learning when they're in preschool and kindergarten, they're learning the names and the sounds and the shapes, creating an anchor picture or including an anchor picture that matches what that sound representation is, knowing what's going on here in your mouth. What does your mouth look like when you make that sound? And including a writing process that children are learning how to hold a pencil correctly.
Yeah.
What kind of tools do we need? Short, skinny, none of those big chunky ones. And they're writing it. They're writing what it is that they're learning. And that continues as children learn to put letters together as they're blending words to read them. Another really important foundation is phonological awareness. And we've mentioned a lot about reading and writing, but the big, huge foundation that underlies both of those skills is a child's ability to know how to play with the sound structures and syllable structures of words.
You know, it's so fun because I've talked to you a couple of times now, and every time you talk about this reading writing connection, and we went back on our decodables and added in to the take-home decodables. With decodables, we have a pack that goes home with kids a pack that goes home with kids. You could buy it for every week of summer school, or you could buy it for the summer. You could buy this pack that goes home based on the reading data. And we added in a page that was all about having kids practice. It's probably not enough practice. The answer is kids need even more practice, but we felt when we heard you say this very loud and clear of how do we then add a page where kids are practicing based around the letter sounds after they've decoded. And I kind of love the idea of even changing the name of that block, how that alone reminds us to do those two together is really what I'm hearing from you.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's exciting. And creating tools that teachers can use that are going to make a really important difference is so important.
Absolutely.
One school district we work with out there is Cobb County. And my friends Ashley Kennedy and Cobb County, they did this beautiful thing. They took their whole staff, they started pushing people through letters. And when their staff went through letters, they were like, okay, we actually need materials. We actually need something more. We need decodables. We need things. So when you think about decodables, Lucy, what's the most, how would you suggest people use decodables in their classrooms and their schools? And how do you see decodables playing into and supporting that phonological kind of development?
So decodable readers are the purpose of what reading is for. So a book is what reading is all about. And we've had if you think about a pre-K kindergarten program, and you've been helping children learn about the letters and the sounds that the letters represent. And now you're putting that together into a functional experience for children to feel like they are readers. And the decodable aspect of it matches up with what has been what the instruction has been. And so children learn the alphabetic principle, and then decodables take it to that next step. Here's how this works in a reading process. And it's consistent. It follows the rules of what we've been talking about in preschool and kindergarten. And now look how it can go. It's such a critical aspect of giving children the confidence that, I can be a reader because I know how to approach this word. It also gives children that practice of looking at a word, not guessing at it, but figuring out what it is, and then checking to see if it makes sense based in the sentence and based in the picture supports that are a part of those decodables.
I want to ask you a question, because sometimes I think as teachers, and Kimberly, you can jump in here, but sometimes people don't want kids that struggle. And I often hear actually that the struggle is okay, it's like a tiny bit of struggle for kids as they're figuring. Do you want to kind of, so I think as administrators, sometimes our gut tells us that, but we hear this noise around us sometimes that tells us something different. So do you want to just kind of, what would you give as your advice to those administrators and site district leaders around that tiny bit of struggle for kids?
Well, I can say as a, principal district support now, that one of the things that I've always said to my teachers is that, by the time kids are from pre-K to kindergarten, they've really not had a lot of opportunity to have a lot of missed learning. And so I think that a lot of times we're mislabeling children as struggling readers before they get to kindergarten, before they even enter pre-K. We know that kids come, different phases, and they are, certainly different learners. But I think that with the right tools, the right strategies, and the right understanding of the reading and writing process, that, students who, particularly students who are what we call, typically developing students will thrive in the right environment. And I think that we are so quick to label students as struggling readers before they get an opportunity. Now, we know that certain windows around phonemic awareness and phonological awareness and all those things, the research talks about those windows beginning to close, and the longer that you allow those things to linger, the more likely it is that children may have issues with reading and outcomes and that kind of thing. But I think that the earlier that we get them, the more that we understand the process, the more that we know not just how to intervene, but how to be proactive and how we engage students to start with. And the quicker that we know our on-ramps and off-ramps for students, for all learners. The other piece that I would add is, a part of the learning process, even for adults, is what we call this cognitive struggle, or this notion of cognitive dissonance. Being in a place where you're having to figure it out so that your brain creates new pathways and fires in a certain way to create connections. And so what we're helping our students to do is to think about, language as a process of creating, viable connections in which, students now have these different pathways and roadmaps to then link from one place to the next. I build one pathway, it connects to another. I build that next pathway, it connects to another. So I think that just really understanding how the reading and writing process works from a developmental standpoint. And I would say from a childhood learning theory, but also from an adult learning theory, it's a part of the work. And being okay with what we call safe practice, and, knowing that, some kids, it may take, a little longer, but staying in the work and being grounded in what we know is best for children. We are designed to get the results that we're getting. So instead of thinking about children from a deficit standpoint, we should probably think about the design, our own design work, and what we're including in our programs, in our reading and writing connections in our classrooms.
I love, Lucy, I want to go back to something that I think you said that I think is really powerful, because we think about it a lot at Just Right Reader, is this practice. How do we give kids enough practice that feels personalized to them? So, and I think, we know that kids need something individualized, differentiated, and kind of matches them as a reader and as a learner and as a writer. So what's your advice as district administrators to think big picture? Here's what I'm going to do for my district, but also I need to think through what I'm going to do for my child in front, that is struggling and is emerging and needs a little bit more.
Okay, so that's a great big question. A big conversation. And Kimberly, all the things that you said are so important. So in the big picture, your teachers have to know. They have to have good understanding of what literacy is. They also have to have tools that are going to be helpful for them in teaching the children who are in their care. We do know that there's a wide range of development, which is considered to be typical. And we have probably 50% or so, those are what the current statistics or recent statistics are, of children coming into kindergarten who have not participated in a preschool program.
Yes.
And so those children aren't behind. They have the opportunity.
Yes.
So let's teach them.
Yes.
So, but you have to know how, and you have to know how to use the tools, have good tools, and know how to use them. And then there needs to be an assessment process that gives you good information about what children have learned, because that then gives you information on what you need to teach them. And so I have seen too many times where we're going to go through this assessment process. We gather this data and the data gets put on the shelf. That is not, don't even do it. If you're not going to use the data to inform your instruction, don't waste your time. But in my mind, and this is one thing I share with a lot of teachers, I think assessment is one of the most important things that we do.
Yeah.
We surely have a continuum of assessment. And we are assessing every time we interact with a little friend. How's this going for you? Are you getting it or are you not? Okay, so an assessment process, knowing how to provide the right kind of instruction. I think another layer to this, when we think about phonological awareness, it doesn't take a lot of time to help children build really important foundations.
I love that, right, Kim? Like, that's like, tell us about that, because that's real. That's like sit with that one more time. I'm just gonna.
Right. We have, there's a wave of phonological awareness instruction that is taking place with programs that are available. But how much do teachers really know about why and when and how of all of those skills that children need to learn? And you're right, Kim, when kids don't have strong phonemic awareness skills, they're going to move into phonics and it's going to be a struggle. Here's a little saying that I like to use. Do you know what phonics is without good phonemic awareness skills? It's onyx. Right? You have these letters, and if you don't know the sound patterns of what those letter combinations are supposed to do, you are not going to get there, because you cannot visually memorize.
That's right.
Words. All the words that you want to be able to read. Yeah. Yes. So the struggle is important. And particularly in a writing piece, what Virginia Berninger talks about is children wanting to write a word. And then the process of, okay, what is that word I want to write? First, I have to figure out what I want to write about. And then I have to parse out what the word is. Now I got to think about what the sounds are in that word, phonemic awareness. Mm-hmm. And then I got to figure out what is the letter pattern that's going to match up to that sound, alphabet knowledge. And that's just the first sound in the word. Then I got to figure out the second sound. And that struggle of going through that process is a really important aspect, as Kimberly so well described, of children's learning.
I love this, right? Because this is hard work for kids and hard work for us as administrators of like, what do we make that look like? And how do we think about that? I want to take a second, and I would love, Lucy, if you want to think about this with me, but we think a lot about, like, we've created a take home for summer, right? We want kids continuing to read all summer long and doing that practice that you talk about. And I want to go through it in a second, but I first want to just let you talk about, like, what's your advice? Kids are heading into summer. They're going to all this work, right? Like, this is like it makes every administrator, her heart like goes like, right? We've done all this work all year long. I got them so far ahead. What's your advice as we move into summer and we think about that of preparing kids to take a break, need practice? Like, what would you say, Dr. Paulson? And then I want to share a little bit about what we created based on all of the thinking that you've had for take homes in the summer. But tell us, what's your advice for parents and families and teachers to let go for the summer, right? Because it's hard.
It is. But when kids have had good instruction, they want to continue to read. When kids feel like they are readers, and that's what Decodables do, I can do this, they want to go home and they want to share that with their families. And so I'm so excited, Sarah, for what you have done with Just Right Reader in creating those packets that make it simple for families to do. So there again is a tool for families that is going to make it easy for families to implement, to use, and motivational for children to want to continue. So that, again, tools is a really important element. But another thing that I think is so important, and this is not just over the summertime, but when kids are not in school, and we saw this as a big catalyst for what COVID created for our children, is the talk that goes on and around children. The talk is so, so important. And the conversational turns that take place between care providers and children, parents, families, and children are an absolute foundation of continuing to expand their oral language skills. Social and emotional skill development is a crux of conversational turns. So take turns in the flesh turns. And I would also say with devices, they're a big part of our life, but devices take time away from the talk. So spend time without the devices and talking. And when you provide books for children to use, it provides a really valuable opportunity for the talk as well.
Kim, I gotta just show our take homes, and then we're gonna come back, because like that gave me prickles what you said, right? Like give kids books, take them off of devices, and let them see us talk. Right? Is like, it's actually goes back to kind of the most simplistic part of teaching in some ways, is how do we focus on those letter sounds and building that phonemic awareness, but also just giving the space around it to get there. So I just want to take a second and share what we've created based on a lot of what we've talked through for you and other researchers. We feel so lucky is we made these take-home decodable packs. We take 10 districts, like Kim, tell us what you did, because you did this actually.
Yeah, so we were able to purchase packs for our K-2 students, our students in kindergarten, first and second grade. And what we did was we were able to share our data, but we made it interesting. The students all created pseudonyms, and we shared our reading data with Just Right Reader, and they created packs that were tailored for individual students. So we've purchased several weeks of the packs, and each week, every boy and girl gets a pack of 10 books on his or her level, and it's like Christmas. It's like, Santa's arriving on Christmas morning for the kids and the teachers, because the beauty of it is, first of all, the kids, it's personalized for them. So, one little boy, I think his name was Spider-Man. So Spider-Man gets his set of books every Thursday, and he's looking for them, he's opening them, and you see the kids, talking, oh, which book did you get? And, oh, what is that book about? And they're reading, and then, every single week that's happening. And at the end of the school year, we're going to be sending those books home, because the beauty of it is the QR codes on the back. The parents will then be able to work on particular segments of, what our students have learned from a phonological standpoint. So, the letter sound association. Then there's a lesson that is very, or a little bit of a diagram, some information for parents to read, to know exactly, what it is that their child is supposed to learn. There's a video in that QR code, and parents are excited about it. So our boys and girls, our K-2 teachers are absolutely on fire about those books. I'm telling you, it's Christmas when they're opening those books. It's not just amazing that they're excited about it. I'm most excited as an administrator that they're learning through the process. And the books, when they open the books, there's children in the books that look like them, doing things that they do in real time. So it's not the decodables that, we traditionally see where it's cat set on a hat, whatever. Like there's a real story, a real storyline that kids relate to. So they're learning, they're having fun, and they're understanding, as Dr. Paulson says, that we learn all these things. We learn how to put words together, because at the end of the day, we want to be able to create meaning, right? Right. And so even in kindergarten, we're able to move from, those reading foundations to helping them to understand pathways for creating meaning and building, contextual opportunities for their learning. It's absolutely been amazing. You're muted, Sarah. You're mute.
Do you know what's so fabulous about this is that Dr. Paulson, Lucy, you always talk about like motivation and supporting kids to see themselves and like grow in that confidence. And that's what I heard you talking about, was like kids feel good, right? Like at the end of the day, we have to match them to what their instructional needs and independent needs are as readers. But also we tried so hard just to make this fun. Like we literally wrap each book of these 10 with the idea that like, this should be fun. This should feel like Christmas. Like Christmas is special, right? Why not have it happen with books at school? A lot of districts are purchasing this, one for each week of summer school for their summer schools. And districts are also saying like, I'm going to send every kindergartner home across my district with a pack. Cypress Fairbanks, it's like, we're just going to do it. And we have these in Spanish too. So for their kids learning in dual immersion classrooms, we have 10 decodables in Spanish. But we love it when districts send us their data and say, we want 5, we want 6 packs. We have up to 11. Some districts even buy up to 11 to go send kids home with over the summer, because we want that practice, Lucy, that like constantly having them practice. And right now is when people need to purchase so that we can send them out for the summer.
Here's a thought that I have about what you are sharing with your home program. I like to think about learning to read and write as making really good cookies. So literacy as really good cookies. Who loves good cookies?
Everyone does.
What you have done with your decodables is taken all these ingredients that go into really good cookies, and you are putting them together with the right amount of quantity of what needs to be for a particular little friend, and you have the right quality of your ingredients, and you're melding them together and providing that opportunity for them to go into the oven and come out with some really valuable learning experiences. And that is, I think, the essence of what it is that we want to do. We want to make sure that kids have the opportunity to learn the things that are going to make the best difference for them. And you're including all those components.
I mean, I think you're right. I think this is, how do we take everything that we know is good for kids and make this really easy for them, for teachers, and for parents, right? Like, how do it, this, you know what I feel that you talk about with cookies is cookies feels easy. Like it's something you want, right? Like, how do we make this so easy for schools to do and for teachers to implement and to keep kids reading, right?
I think another really important aspect is the way that you have put these pieces together. It's going to help families know what reading looks like, what reading and writing should look like for their friend, for their child. And a thought that I had, and I think the big shift that we have was COVID helped families know that their children really weren't on track with what they thought their children, their own children were able to do. It exposed a lot.
It did expose a lot. And I think as educators, everyone wanted to do well, right? We wanted to like, it pushed us to like, okay, what can we do more of? What does that look like? You have 10 more minutes, Lucy. What do you want to, like, I feel like I'm just going to give this to you. Take these 10 minutes. What do you want to tell? Like you have people all around the country. It's so beautiful. You're such a, like, you know, what's so beautiful about this is people are asking, I see questions coming in about sound walls and what, like, I want to almost like, what's your tidbit you have questions about sound walls, you have questions, I'm just looking at the questions about developing readers, like how do you really, what's the one thing that you would do for developing readers?
What is all that going to be? So developing readers, I also want to make sure you include writing.
Right.
So maybe when I think about ingredients and how writing, language, and literacy work together, the kernel of language is based in a phoneme. The kernel of reading and writing is also based in a phoneme. And so when we can help children build really strong phonological and phonemic awareness skills, and at the same time, that's one of those big ingredients, a key ingredient. And I think in our recipe analogy, I think phonological awareness is like the butter. It's what binds together the letters. It's kind of like the flour, because that's the basis of what our written language system is. And then we have all these other ingredients, chocolate, mandatory, nuts, raisins, whatever it might be. That's the language piece, the vocabulary, the richness of oral language. And so understanding how rich this oral language needs to be, no matter what language children are speaking, we can help children continue to develop the language that they are loved in from their home. And kids coming to us, helping them learn the dialect of our school language. So acknowledging how rich and important the oral language is. And then also this really important ingredient of what the letter written language is going to look like. And so those coming together from that phonologically based perspective is a really important aspect, which is going to lead into, from an oral language perspective, well-developed sentence structures in children's oral language, morphologic connections to oral language. It all comes down to that nugget and the kernel of oral and written language in the phoneme. So phonemic awareness is really critical for both oral language and written language to develop. And then as those skills grow and continue to emerge, monitoring, guiding children's learning across those steps and processes is how we are going to get to the best learning outcomes for the children who are in our care. And I think for all of you joining us, and thank you so much for your interest and wanting to continue to dive deeper into what it is that we know. Literacy has to include a foundation in oral language. It has to include a foundation in written language, and understanding and knowing what's going to be best at those different age levels. Preschool, kinder, first, second grade is absolutely what we as educators need to know about in our own professional learning and understanding, and then having the tools that we can use that are going to help us best with the children who are in our care. So those are, I think, are the big takeaways. Some of the things that I'm seeing in the chat box also, sight words. Sight words should absolutely be taught by looking at the letters in what those words are, identifying the sound patterns that are in the words, matching up that sound pattern so that you can orthographically map those words almost instantaneously. It should take a microsecond. And good readers are going to map words with several experiences. Children who are going to struggle a little bit are going to need more experience in mapping those words. But it comes down to a phonologic connection. When you put a sound wall up as opposed to a word wall, the sound is always going to be the same. And in our sound structure, our phonology structure, we have, how many speech sounds we have in our general American English phonology. Any guesses? It's not really a guess. We have an estimate, depending on which linguistic researcher you're talking to. It's about 44 sounds. You know how many letters there are in our alphabet, right? 26. It's not a good match. There are over 250 ways of representing those 40-some speech sounds in our orthographic or our written language. And so a sound wall gives children a way to look at, oh yeah, what is that sound? I can match that sound to what this looks like, what your mouth looks like. And then, oh, here are the orthographic patterns that can represent that sound. Which one is going to match this particular word that I am trying to write? Which one is going to match this particular word that I want to read? And again, there's that reading and writing connection. So sight words should always have a phonologic connection to it. What sounds work? And out of the first 100 sight words that we've talked about for decades, there's only one that has no phonologic connection. You know what word that is? Of. Every other word, when you know the digraphs of our spelling patterns, there's some connection to the phonologic structure of the word. So that was a whole bunch of things melded in together, but make sure that you have a good assessment plan. Your teachers know and have that background and understanding, and you provide tools that are going to help them make a difference for the children in their care. And Just Right Reader, you're providing some really valuable tools.
I am so deeply inspired. Kimberly, are you not like I'm ready to sell my company and go teach, because I feel like what you're saying is so beautiful, right? Reading, writing connection, get yourself some good, real, live, like us, a product that supports that, and think hard about those phonemes and the letters and sounds. Kimberly, how inspired are you right now?
Beyond inspired. I think I'm next going to be sore this evening when I get home, because I'm, it's kind of, yeah, absolutely. And, this is just priceless information. I think sometimes we sit, at the feet of generals, and we don't even understand or really, realize just the impact that's being made. But thank you so much, Dr. Paulson, for sharing. And Sarah, thank you for providing this opportunity for educators to come together and network. It's awesome to have, individuals who certainly, understand and can teach the work. And then it's also, just wonderful to have, folks out there who say, this is great work, and we want to support teachers. So let's, be boots on the ground and make sure that as teachers are frontlinesmen, that they're making sure they have the tools, right? Mm-hmm. So it's just an honor to be with both of you today. So thank you.
Thank you. And for you administrators, teaching in a structured literacy approach should be a non-negotiable in your programs. No more letting children guess at words. That teaches them to be slow readers. And we can see those results in the number of children who are not proficient in their reading process. It's going to be such a difference when our educational system is using structured literacy as the way of teaching children to write, and or a way of teaching children to read, and then also including that writing process. You're going to get such good learning outcomes.
Well, kudos to learning outcomes to come, right? I think we all agree that the best is upon us, right? In so many ways. And I am leaving so deeply inspired. Kimberly, you're doing the work, right? And Dr. Paulson, you're inspiring us with all of your words. And we feel lucky at Just Right Reader that we do these a lot. Actually, we do webinars, we fly around the country, we do science and reading symposiums. We're going to bring Dr. Paulson down to Atlanta in September. We believe deeply in bringing people together to have conversations about creating better classrooms and better districts and better schools to support kids. And we feel just so lucky to put decodables in the hands of kids all summer long, help transformation schools have decodable take-home packs, our libraries. So Dr. Paulson, thank you for constantly reminding us of that reading, writing connection and the impact we can have for kids with these non-negotiables of a really good science of reading classroom.